Welcome to the One Stiletto in the Grave podcast with your hosts, Sonny Ormond and Jane James.
Well, hello everyone. In today's podcast, we are reflecting on the closure of Grey Gables. Oh, the shock. How will Lillian survive without her facials? How will Kathy survive the road trip? Alaska or bust? And we are having a natter with our friend and writer, the sensational and inspirational Susie Osborne. How are you, darling? You all right?
I'm all right. I'm fine. And what I wanted to do today was to have a bit of a chat. I want to know if you knew about Grey Gables closing down and you didn't tell me.
I knew nothing. It was as much of a shock to me as it was to the list. I knew nothing. In fact, there was a sharp intake of breath when I heard the episode that told me that it was, yes, closing down. I mean, Grey Gables. But, I mean, it's going to have a bit of a refurb, isn't it? But,
Well, so they say, but if it's going to take a year,
I know.
Will they have any customers left? Will everyone have gone to Les Sœurs Heureuses or whatever that Ponzi place is?
That's very good that you can say that. I can never say it. I always get a little bit sweaty under the armpits if I've got that in a script. Les Sœurs Heureuses. Very
Les Sœurs Heureuses.
Les Sœurs Heureuses. Well, yes, they could go to Les Sœurs Heureuses, of course, couldn't they? They may very well.
They could, couldn't they?
Yeah. And what's Lillian going to do, for a facial? And there'll be all sorts of repercussions here,
Well, this is the thing, because the swimming pool's there, isn't it? She likes to swim.
She's a pretty good swimmer, Yeah, she's a pretty good
I know,
swimmer.
and I don't think that nobody's ever mentioned a council-run swimming pool. Not that Lillian would probably go to it, but
certainly not.
I've never heard of anyone swimming anywhere else, or indeed having a facial anywhere. There must be somewhere in Underwoods to have facials and
one would hope.
get your nails done, mustn't there?
Yes, I mean, they could always swim in the Am, couldn't they? Go do wild swimming or something. I mean, can
wild
you imagine
swimming?
Susan, wild swimming in the Am. That would be a sight to behold, I'm sure. I
don't really want to think of Susan Carter in a bikini in the Am or anywhere else for that matter.
I know.
Oh, blimey.
I know. And I was shocked to know that Kathy, was leaving. She's going on a road trip, isn't she? She's going on a road trip. She's going to Alaska, I think.
And then probably never coming back.
Well, because who knows? Who knows?
Well, who knows indeed. I thought Jolene didn't exactly sound sorry to hear her go, did she?
No, she didn't. Well, I'm not surprised, really, are you? I mean, their lives have sort of crossed in rather unfortunate ways, haven't they? Several times, actually.
Well, yes, because Jolene keeps marrying Kathy's ex-husband, doesn't she?
She does.
Yeah.
She does. So I think she's pretty pleased she's going off to Alaska, quite frankly.
Perhaps that's why she's going to Alaska, because she feels that Jolene won't be able to find any new bit of totty that she picks up there.
Well, that's it. Yeah, probably. I think that's it. But I think it's brilliant that she's going on a road trip. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? At her age. Go for it, I say.
Well, I say so too, yeah. Although, presumably the first bit will be flying. Quite difficult to drive to Alaska.
Well, yes, that's very true. Actually, I haven't really thought about that.
I haven't quite figured out this road trip.
I guess when she gets there, that's what she'll be doing. I mean, I don't know. But no, it was a real shock, I have to say, when I knew that Grey Gables, and the repercussions, of course, for all those other characters in the Archers. It'll be very interesting to see how all that pans out, those that work at Grey Gables, won't it?
It will. Who do you think's bought it?
I don't know. Who do you think's bought it? A consortium or something?
I just hope it's Matt Crawford.
Wouldn't
that be brilliant?
Wouldn't that be wonderful? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Now that would put the cat among the pigeons, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That would be brilliant. What a great idea.
I really, really like that. Or I wondered if Vince Casey might have bought it for Elizabeth.
Yes. Oh, very good. Very good. So not only Loxley Hall, but you'd have Grey Gables as well.
Yeah. So I don't know why nobody's asking. Maybe I've nodded off during an episode or something, but nobody's saying, well, who's bought it then, are they? You'd think they might want to know.
Yeah, yes. You would. It's all being rather hidden, isn't it, at the minute? I mean, I have no idea. It'd just be very interesting at the end of the day to see, actually, what type of place it is. But as you say, we have about a year of refurbishments.
We do.
But, yeah. So...
But it was nice to hear Caroline's name mentioned, though.
It was, and several times, wasn't it? And I think as well, it's difficult for Oliver. Some people are lambasting him, but I think he had no way out of this situation, clearly. COVID and everything else had, really put the kibosh on it all, and he just wasn't making money.
I suppose not, but he did have an offer for it, didn't he, before COVID? After Caroline died, he had an offer and said, couldn't do that to the staff, but clearly times have changed with old Buffer.
Times have changed, clearly. So I don't know what will happen to him, but anyway, yes. So that's the Grey Gables story, and I think actually, what would have been very interesting, and something that's never happened there, is that they could have held a literary festival or something like that, couldn't they? There,
why has Linda Snell never done this?
Indeed, why has she never done it? But that brings us very nicely on, actually, doesn't it?
To our guest.
Introducing our guest today. Indeed, our great friend, Susie Osborne. I know we're very thrilled about this. Now, Susie is a writer, novelist, in fact, 5 novels to date, and she's also the director and founder of Northwich Literary Festival in Cheshire.
Yay!
So, she could certainly give Linda a tip or two about literary festivals, that's for sure. So welcome, Susie. Thank you so much for being with us today. Now, just quickly, you and I first met in 2013, if I'm right. I think I'm right, aren't I, Susie? It was 2013.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah.
That's right. When I came to perform my one-woman show, which was called An Evening with at the Lit Festival. Go on, yes, go.
It was quite funny because you rang me, didn't you? And it was a Sunday morning, and we'd been out the night before, and we were sort of laid in bed, and this person rang up and said, "Hello, I'm Sunny Orman." And I'm like, who?
Who's she?
Night before, absolutely. So so that was our first introduction.
It was, yes. And it's funny because I remember you saying that afterwards, that you'd had a bit of a heavy night. That I thought this voice. Would you be interested in taking my show for your literary festival? What? Oh yes. Oh yeah. Okay. Yes, it was.
So glad you rang, because every time you've come, you've had a tremendous audience, haven't you?
Well, you have. You've been wonderful, and you've kindly invited me back 3 times. And the third show, of course, was Dorothy, which was the airings of an Archer's Actor's Art, which is written, of course, by the wonderful Jane James. Yeah, and that was how you began your friendship, of course, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
And Janie's been in her own right as well.
So Dorothy was fantastic, wasn't it? So good. So
it's a very good piece of work, isn't it? Yeah, it's very, very funny. Now the thing is, Susie, you really are a great role model for women in their 60s and 70s doing new things, because in fact your first novel was published when you were 60, wasn't it?
Gosh, yes, it was actually the week of my 60th birthday, and I had the best week ever. I had a red and black themed tarty party. I had big red feather wings, which I never really thought at the time, but I was wearing a sort of low back top with these red feather wings, and all the dye came out of the red feathers. It reacted with my skin, so I spent half of the night itching.
Oh no!
But apart from that, it was a really good night. So I was on top of the world that night. So in actual fact, my 60s were my best decade. I always say that to people, but I had such a great time in my 60s. So it was great.
Oh, how wonderful.
70s is a bit, but it's okay.
So, did you write before you got to 60 and published? Had you always written?
I've always written just bits and pieces, really, but nothing that was published before. I used to write as a child. I was an only child, a lonely only, and I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house in Yorkshire, and she had an attic, and it was full of everything, hidden treasures. It was just paradise to me, and it inspired me, really. I used to think I was Jo March from Little Women, and writing all these stories, but and then I worked in a library for a long time as well, so I was surrounded by books for a long time, but until I was 60, life gets in the way, and I'm sure you've got that, Jane. When you're trying to write, but you've got a family growing up, and it's not always easy, is it, to find the space? And it still isn't in my house, I have to say.
Is there a particular time and a place that you like to write, or is it just like when you can grab the time?
I used to have an old caravan at the top of the garden, and it was the best place ever, but over the years it rotted, to be fair. And it ended up being towed away. It was very sad.
Oh.
So, now I have a summer house, but it's just not the same, and it also tends to store a lot of my son's furniture. So there's not a lot of space for me in there anymore.
You just sort of slot in when you can and where you can. Oh gosh, Susie.
Yeah. Oh dear. So
is there a particular time that you like to write? You know, day or not?
I'm best in an afternoon, actually. I'm so not a morning person, but afternoons are more my time. That's theoretically and ideally, I like to write in an afternoon. It doesn't always work that way, but yeah. But I also have, we have 2 dogs, one of which is Alfie, who is my shadow, absolute shadow. And he has now discovered that if he sits with me to write, he can rest his chin on the laptop. But he's now gone one step further in that he knows how to hit the lid of the laptop and it closes.
Oh, bless.
And he's slowed down my writing quite considerably.
I think your books is just want to ask you something about. One thing that always interests me about writers is whether you start with plot or character. But I think one thing that's really interesting with your books is that if I've got this in the right sequence, your first 2 books were each about 2 different characters, and then the third book is about those 2 characters.
Yeah, they connect up in the third.
They connected, yeah.
I wasn't ever going to write a trilogy. I started off just writing one book, and then people kept saying when I was writing the second one, so is this a sequel to the first one? But you don't actually know if anybody's ever going to read the first one at that point. So, but then by the time I reached the third one, I thought, I could actually connect the 2, and which I did. So I put one of the characters from the first one, I think it was one, in the second one, and then drew them all together in the third one. But I'll never do that again. It was very complicated. So
was it?
Yeah, it was. I didn't. It was a struggle. So because I'm not a methodical person, really, I like to follow the flow of how my imagination takes me, really. So for the other books, I've just done a complete story in one book, basically.
Right.
Yes. So the last one I wrote, Angelica Stone, people were saying it's very dark, which I hadn't really. It was, I suppose, a bit dark, but it hadn't really struck me as being dark. I'm not particularly a dark person. Still had a lot of humour in it, but this one that I've just written now is a lot of humour. I wanted it to be uplifting. A lot of it was written during lockdown in 2020, and I just wanted something happy and something to make you laugh, basically. Which is hopefully what it will do. It's got a lot of emotion and that in it as well, but it has got more humour than the others have.
And this is Happiness is a Thing with Wings, isn't it?
Yes, which is a strange sort of title, but it's about Joanna, a character called Joanna, and she is approaching her 50s. And although that seems very young to me, to her it seems quite old. And she's been trapped in an unhappy marriage for 30 years. And she has a grown-up son who's about to fly the nest, and she just feels that she's wasted her life in a way. She feels she's stuck in a rut and she can't get out and she's not achieved anything. And on the other hand, she looks at her sister, who's tall and glamorous. She, by the way, is small and dumpy and just always, a bit downtrodden. Whereas her sister is tall and slim and has a handsome husband and a beautiful baby girl, and she's just got everything. And Joanna is quite envious, and she tends to resort to gin and chocolate at all times.
Good for her.
Oh, yes, sounds like a woman after my own heart. What inspired you to write this one then, Susie?
I don't really know. I just started one day without any particular. Sometimes I just start a book and I don't know where I'm going with it, really, like this one.
Correct.
And it just writes itself in a way. Sometimes, I don't know if you're the same, Jane, but sometimes you're writing and the words write themselves almost. A voice comes into your head and it tells you what to put, and it's just that sounds really surreal, but you hear of a lot of writers who plan everything really methodically. They have little post-it notes everywhere saying exactly what's going to happen in each chapter, but I've never been that sort of person. I'm not an organised person anyway, so I don't think I could be like that. I'd like to be like that. I'd like to be organised, but
it's very encouraging to hear you say that, because I never know what I'm going to write when I start off, and sometimes I'm writing things and saying to the characters, you can't say that, you can't do that. But they kind of do. They take on a life of their own, don't they?
They do. I'm like that. Yes, you can't say that. That's not right at all. But then it is, and it sort of goes on, doesn't it? And then you think, am I completely insane, or will anybody actually like this? But yeah, it seems to work.
Well, people do, because
Yeah.
It's your fifth. It's being a non-writer. It's really fascinating hearing you both talk about these voices, or and that they just sort of are there, and it's almost in a way you can't stop writing. I mean, that's really a fascinating process.
They take over your life as well, don't they? And then when you reach the end of a book, and I'm sure Jane, the end of a play, you feel sort of bereaved in a way, gone, and you've suddenly lost this family that was part of your life for a long time. So yeah, I don't feel so bad about this one, because she was always full of humour and she's had a nice time in the end. But Angelica Stone was a sort of sad ending, and I just felt really sorry for her.
It was.
Yes. But yeah, this one's a happy end. So yeah. Yes. So we'll see how it goes.
You must talk to lots of writers.
Yeah.
Because of the literary festival.
Yeah.
So do you get the sense that other people write the same way as we do, or is everybody else there with the post-it notes plotting in advance?
Most people seem to go down the post-it notes and organised route, but some are like we do, and some handwrite the whole thing, as I used to for the first book. But I don't now. I write on the laptop. But people who I've spoken to, Jill Mansell, she handwrites her books always. It's a lot of work, isn't it, then, and getting it typed up then at the end of the day. I do find it easier, obviously, now on the laptop, because you can alter things and change things, can't you, without a problem. So yeah. But it's nothing like those two little words at the end, the end.
Yeah. And would an interesting thing for me, would either of you ever want to write, audibly, just speak into a microphone or something like that, record thoughts like that? Is it something to do with the getting down either on a computer or on paper that is important?
I think I need to see it on paper. I don't think I can do it.
Me too.
Yeah. I've not heard of anybody that does that
really.
Yeah, I'm sure there must be people that do, but for me, I need to see it in front of me. I need to see the words written down. Yeah.
Me too.
And is there anything that sort of stops you writing? I mean, do you get kind of writer's block, or does it usually?
Yeah, sometimes, and then I just sometimes I think I'll just write just any old thing. I can always delete it the next day, and sometimes I do, because it is good to keep in the moment, really. When you're writing a book or a play or whatever, if you leave it for a few weeks and then go back to it, you've lost the plot, so to speak.
Yes, you have.
So you really do need to keep in it. And so I do try to write, when I'm writing a book, I do try to write a little bit each day. Although having said that, with the last book, Happiness is a Thing with Wings, I did keep having chunks of it where I didn't do any writing. It was during lockdown. I was just distracted by the garden and various other things, and anything to distract you sometimes.
Isn't it?
But yeah, so it has taken me a long time to write this one, but yeah, it's done. So I need to start thinking of the next one soon.
Yes, I was going to say, what's the next one? Have you got thoughts about that? You don't know, right? You haven't got anything in the minute.
Perhaps maybe two old women doing a podcast might be.
That sounds a good one.
Yeah,
There's a beginning.
Absolutely is. Yeah.
But so going on to the literary festival as well, which is fascinating because you've been doing that. It's about 9 years before COVID obviously hit, but it was for about that time. What was it that inspired you to do it in the first place, Susie?
It was Northwich has a river festival, and it was a friend of mine at the time that was sorting out the river festival, and his wife is my friend. She is an artist, so she was talking about doing an art trail around the town, and I thought, well, I could start a literary festival at the same time, really. So that's what we did, and but I went on and did my own thing, and continued with it. So it's been going on a long time. We've not done it obviously because of COVID for this is the third year without a full literary festival. We've still done the short story competition, which just was the closing date last week, so I'm just judging that at the moment. But over the years, I was just thinking earlier, I must have had about 120 different events over that time. Because we have about 15 a year or something, so I've met a lot of different people. Some have returned because they've been such superstars. I've invited them back again, obviously. But mostly different people. But it's amazing.
And how do you plan a programme, Susie? I mean, obviously you get nutters like me sort of ringing you every now and again saying, excuse me, would you like my show? But presumably it's you often that is going out finding people. Is that the way it works?
It is. And I usually find people, well, I do or did before COVID go to quite a lot of literary events anyway, so you come across people that you can speak to and ask. But also through things like Facebook and Twitter, I've approached people as well. And we've had some amazing ones. The very first year, actually, when I'd never run a literary festival before, Northwich had never had a literary festival before, and I thought Adele Parks, who's a really top writer, she'd got a book coming out called Whatever It Takes that year. And I thought, right, I'm going to do whatever it takes and try and get her here. And I contacted her, and amazingly, she said I would have to go through her publicist, which I did. And she said, yes, she would like to come up here because it was the week that her book was being launched. So she came, and I thought, I bet nobody's going to turn up because you just don't know, do you really? No. And at the time she arrived, and she was there with her PA, and I was there thinking nobody's going to turn up. And actually they did, and 60 people came to that first event, and I couldn't believe it. And she was delighted, and she actually wrote a piece in one of the daily papers, and she said she'd been undecided whether to come to the event or not, but Susie Osborne had attacked the whole affair with gusto. I love that one. She'd been delighted, so that was great.
That was brilliant. A great start as well.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of interesting people. We've had Julia Baird, who is John Lennon's sister. She was great. She was just so, in fact, she's one of my favourite people that came, actually. She was so, she had absolutely nothing written down, not practiced anything at all, and she just spoke from the heart, and it was just really emotional. It was lovely. I'm trying to think and the very last one we had before the first lockdown was Richard Strange, who was a singer in the, I think, 70s, and he'd written his biography, and I was recommended that we had him for the Lit Fest, and I didn't know what he'd be like at all, but we invited him, and he said he would love to come, and he would talk about his life. The book was his biography. He would talk about his life and bring some slides and things to show, and he would also play some of his music. And so I booked Davenham Theatre, which you know well, Sonny.
Indeed.
And so along he came, and we got quite a good audience, and he started at 7:30, and I was expecting him to be there for about an hour and a half. He was actually till 11:30 at night. A full-blown rock concert. Davenham was absolutely dancing. I don't think they knew what they were getting, really, and neither did I, to be fair. But he was absolutely tremendous. I was just amazed, yeah. So,
gosh, how brilliant.
Certainly a good night, yeah.
Are you going to have him back? You're going to have him back?
I would like to, yes.
Yeah, sounds brilliant.
Busily touring all over the world, but maybe he'll come back one day. And then, of course, I had to invite, because he was staying with us overnight, as you have quite often as well at events, because that's the other thing I really have to offer people. Would they like a bed for the night? Because in our poor little Lit Fest, we can't afford hotel for people. Yes, he came to stay for the night, and because it was the last event, I'd not prepared anything in the way of food, and it was 11:30 at night. Everywhere was closed, and all I could offer him was fish and chips from the freezer, and I felt awful. But it seemed to go down well.
I bet it did. After all those hours working, I bet he was thrilled. And your hospitality is wonderful.
It is.
You're so lovely, you and your family. You really, really are. But I mean, you're touching on, yes, a little Lit Fest. I mean, you don't have any funding, do you at all, Susie, or do you have some?
Although we have got a little bit ready for next year already.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Very grateful to Northwich Council.
Great.
Brilliant. Because it's such hard work, isn't it?
It is a
without
lot of
funding.
hard work. And every year, as you know, I keep saying this might be the last year, never again. And I really was thinking this was it, but I am going to do it next year. It might be the last one, but I am going to do it next year now. So yes.
When you're thinking about who to invite, and looking back on who you've had, what makes a good speaker? What makes a good event, do you think?
Gosh, well, it needs to be somebody that's going to attract an audience for a start, which is the main thing. And so somebody who's got a bit of a following anyway, obviously, like Sunny, or like we had Carol Matthews. I don't know if you know Carol Matthews. She had a large crowd as well, and Adele Parks as well. People like that, really. Richard Strange, a lot of people hadn't heard of for some reason, but maybe I should have done more publicity for him. But as it happens, it worked out okay anyway. But it's got to be somebody that's really entertaining and down to earth, and that warms to the audience. So I try to get a bit of a mixture as well, like playwrights and actors and musicians maybe, as well as writers of books, Yes.
You always have such lovely audiences.
Yeah, you do. I was just going to say that, Janie. I mean, some of the best shows I've done have been with you at Davenham, and it's not the largest theatre in the world at all, but it's lovely and intimate, and you always have the most fantastic. I mean, certainly when we did Dorothy, I mean, we were packed to the hill, weren't we, with it? And people were always sitting behind me, but the warmth of the audience. Everyone's really giving that lovely northern. Because I'm a Cheshire lass as well, and I think it's Cheshire lovely warmth there, It's
and I think
great.
Lit Fest is one place that a lot of, shall we say, ladies of a certain age that don't like to go out alone anywhere. They feel safe to come to the Lit Fest, and they've met each other, and lots of friendships have started because of Northwich Lit Fest, which is a really nice thing, actually. People go there to meet each other at the next event type thing. So, yes. So we're hoping we might have you back again next year, Sunny.
Ooh, yes, please. Yes, please. Janie, write another show quick.
Yeah.
Quick.
I'll get onto it right now. 2 elderly women doing a podcast. Sorry, Susie, I'm having it back.
Oh, yeah, well, you know that. I'd love to come back any time. But so it's definitely happening. As far as you know, anyway, next year, you're going for it next year.
Yeah. Yes. Let's hope COVID keeps away as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Sorry, Jenny.
Go on, Sunny.
No,
go on, you go.
Go. Oh.
No. Oh, no. You. After you.
One of the things was, what makes you laugh, Susie? I mean, who makes you laugh? What gets
Everything makes me laugh. I'm a very giggly sort of person, actually. But I don't know. I think I just laugh at myself a lot of the time. I laugh at other people. No, I laugh with other people, not at them. But you know what I mean? When anything goes wrong, I'm always the first to be laughing. But I don't know. As Sophie, my daughter, we giggle together all the time. We have the same sense of humour, and we're always laughing. So, yeah, laughter is definitely the best medicine. I'm always saying that, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, if you can see the funny side
I looked
of
after
things.
my mum for 10 years. I looked after my mum for 10 years when she had Alzheimer's, and it was horrendous. And Sophie and I, well, she did a lot with me. And you just, even in times like that, you have to laugh, because she did such funny things that, you know, we were half the time laughing with her, but some of the time at her. But, you know, it just happens, doesn't it, really? You just have to keep laughing, which is what...
Well, it is. It's getting you through, isn't it? Certain situations as well, you know.
Yeah, but I think I giggle too much sometimes. But
I don't think you giggle at all too much.
No.
Young as well, doesn't it? Laughter, do you not think?
Of course it does. Yes, it certainly does. And I've always been so impressed with you whenever I've come up to the festival, because inevitably when you're organising something like that, little things are going to go wrong. Inevitably they are. Yeah. But you always, you know, I don't know, you always have a great smile on your face, and things always get solved. And I was thinking, what's she really feeling inside? But you just have that, oh, well, it'll all get, and it does happen. It all, you know, and you do have to have that.
At the end,
To a degree, don't you? If you're organising something like a festival like that, you know.
I have a great friend called Viv, who she sort of helps a bit. Well, she helps with the short story competition, and she's always there, the calm one behind me, saying, "It'll be fine on the night, Susie. It'll be fine."
Yes.
And it always is, of course. It always is.
It is.
It is. It's true.
It always is. It always
Not had
is.
many disasters. It's all just been small things that have gone wrong. Nothing major so far. Touch wood. Here it is. Touch wood.
I was going to say touchwood.
Yeah.
Now, when we were talking about preparing for this the other day, Sunny said, and I don't know if she was joking about this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Are you descended from royalty?
Yes. I am. She's been reading things about
I've been doing the research. I have.
My cousin researched our family tree, and Richard I of France, apparently. So yeah. So, and it's weird, because I've always loved all things French. If I hear a French accent, I'm like, oh, French accent, you know, and France itself, just anything, French language, French anything. When Nick and Sophie used to be doing French at school, I was like, oh, can I help with your French homework? And now Alex, my grandson, I'll help you with your French anytime. I'm just obsession with French.
So is this Richard the Lionheart, yeah?
No, it's...
Richard Coeur de Lion. Oh, Richard I of France.
Actually, apparently. Richard the Fearless, that's good for me. Not exactly fearless, but anyway, yeah. Richard
Oh
the First.
gosh, how fascinating. And I mean, do you know where he originated from? Which bit of France he originated from? Have you discovered that or not?
Should have looked into it more clearly,
Well,
shouldn't I? But,
No, maybe that could be your next novel. That could be your next novel,
write a
Susie.
historical novel, couldn't
You
I?
could, and go to France to do the research. We'll come with you. Jenny and I'll be with you.
Let's all go. Let's have a girly day. A girly trip.
Have a road trip.
Yes.
You could have a road trip. Good way
Well,
to
I think for the next literary festival you need a crown.
Yes, most definitely, actually. Not
think we should-
wings, a crown.
A crown. Yeah. Ditch the wings. Don't do the wings. But a crown.
Yes, a crown, absolutely.
I can see you in a crown.
Well, I have a tiara already. Did you know I had a tiara? It was quite funny. I'll tell this story because it is a bit
Yes,
funny.
please.
I started with COVID. I was diagnosed with COVID. Tested positive for COVID on Christmas Eve. It was great timing.
Oh.
So I was locked away in a bedroom on my own, right through from Christmas Eve to, was it the day after New Year? Yeah, the day after New Year. So fastened away. So in my bedroom, Sophie had bought me a tiara for Christmas. So in my bedroom, on my own, I was playing Christmas music in my nightshirt, wearing a tiara, dancing, because I thought you've got to keep, moving. You can't just lie in bed. I actually got a photo of this. It's just crazy. Oh,
that's brilliant. And so were people sort of passing bit of food under the door? It was all sort of that business, knocking on the door saying, "It's here, Susie, take it," you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Bob was in bed in the other room, and people keep saying, well, you could have been in the same room, but he was watching sport and walking, you know what I mean? So I was in my own room with my Christmas songs. So
and tiara.
Yeah, and tiara. And I actually put some curling ribbon around as well to make it look like decorations. But anyway, poor Sophie was delivering meals to the door. And then on New Year's Eve, Sophie said, we could have karaoke with the door closed. You could sing in the bedroom and sing at the door. So we did try that. My voice was very croaky, even more so than usual because of the COVID. So it wasn't very successful at all, really, but we tried.
Well,
she did a glass of Prosecco.
That is that is really good service, isn't it? But of course, I'm thinking some people would be very happy actually to have been entombed in their bedroom from Christmas to New Year. Some people would have thought, "Oh, this is actually quite nice. I don't have to deal with Christmas." But that's a brilliant story, Susan.
Okay.
Brilliant.
And we did celebrate Christmas the week later. Actually, we saved the majority of the presents. I just had the tiara on the day.
Oh,
but it was poor Zach's first Christmas, of course. Sophie's baby.
Of course,
yes.
Yeah, but
yes, your lovely little grandson. Yes,
he didn't know any different.
oh no. Bless.
Well, you can show him later. One of the things that I loved, actually, because one does one's research, well, one has one guess on, was that your great motto, and this is great for us all, I think, it's never too late to achieve anything.
Yes.
And absolutely, that really is true, isn't it, actually?
It is true. Yes,
no matter what age you are, if there's something that you've always wanted to do, then go for it. Have a go.
Absolutely,
basically.
yes, absolutely. Yeah, so, yeah.
Which is what you did.
Yeah, I did.
With the novels.
And I still, like to do different things. I keep saying I really do want to paint. And I've said that for so long, and I've never got round to it. But there's just not enough hours in the day for me, basically. But, yeah. But, yeah.
Well, thank you for sparing this part of your day for us. It's just been such a joy to talk to you.
Really lovely to talk to you.
Really, really
Susie,
lovely.
Really, really has. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. And for obviously for folk who live in Cheshire, the Northwich Lit Festival is going to be happening in 2023. So do look out for that because. You always have such interesting guests and events going on, so can't recommend it highly enough. And you never know, we may be there.
Hopefully.
We may be there.
Yeah, true.
And you don't have to wait until then for your dose of Susie, because Happiness is a Thing with Wings is published in the end of August, isn't it?
The end of August, yes, it is. So looking forward to that.
I've got my pre-order on Amazon already.
Oh, have you? Well done. Thank you so much. Okay.
and yes, what are the outlets for it, Susie? For anyone who wants to, is Amazon the best sort of?
At the moment, it's on Amazon, available to pre-order, but it'll be available through all the major bookshops, Waterstones and stuff. Brilliant. So I presume you can pre-order it from there as well now. So
brilliant.
Book launch due in the end of August, beginning of September. So.
Great.
Send your invitation.
Bless you, please.
We shall have that, and we'll report back to the nation.
Absolutely.
After we've been.
Absolutely. But
thank you so much, Susie.
Thanks for listening to our One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. If you'd like to see behind-the-scenes clips and bonus content, please visit our Facebook page, One Stiletto in the Grave podcast. And if you'd like to ask any questions, follow us on Twitter at OneStiletto65. This podcast is produced by Raggedy House Productions and the music composed by Tom Smith. See you next time!